Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and today we are continuing our delve into the historical elements that created the United States that we have today. And we're going to use that as mind fuel for our world building. And today we're going to talk about railroads. Yes, I love the question. How do you first question, how do you find a train worth robbing? Makes a lot of sense because we've seen at least if you're a fan of any of the Western movies about cowboys and going across the United States, there was always train robberies. And to this day, there's even places that run very short, limited train rides. And out in the far west, uh, especially around the Grand Canyon and stuff, they have the fake train robberies, and you can get tickets on them. And, I guess somebody would have to give out some information, which would be kind of cool. A little bit of a heist, player characters having to rob trains or protect a train that's being robbed or something. That's cool. It's a very that I like where that has gone. Um, hey, hello. You said good morning there, Caligulus, which means you're probably or most likely in the States, maybe. Kind of cool. Yeah, TA says, why did Jesse James rob banks? Because that was where the money was. Exactly. Is that something Jesse James said? I just remember that saying, like, yeah, why did he rob banks? Because that's where the money's at. Also, is it fuel or fertilizer for our minds? Well, I shovel a lot of shit, so yeah, there's a little bit of that too. Um, the old version in fantasy only world of a train would be a caravan. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a train without tracks, I suppose, with a long enough caravan. Oh, okay, okay. In Germany, cool. I should start doing that. Little shout outs to where everyone is from. I know someone's from at least in or thereabouts of Transylvania. It was kind of cool. It's where Banat come is from. So anyway, we're going to talk about trains, and of course, we there is one very famous fantasy train that is in fantasy Dungeons and Dragons, and those are the lightning rails from Eberron. But I thought we could go down a little bit of a different path and kind of talk about like what is it about trains that make up such a fantastical element even till today. Like I still imagine like my one of my bucket lists is to do a trans Canadian or trans US train ride, like from one end to another. um there's Banat, a taste of Banat. Hey there, like no D&D trains please, we can only handle so much anachronisms. Oh yeah, we're doing it. Oh, howdy. In California for 4 months now, hanging in house, everyone. It's about 2 hour drive. Listen, 2 hours is a spit's distance from Transylvania compared to the rest of us. So yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Side note, I'm always in the search for um English or English translations of role playing games from around the world. So, if any of you know of any excellent or strange or odd, extremely enculturated role playing games from around the world, for those of you who are around the world, um, consider us dropping in a link or an idea or something like that. That's for later. Right now, we're going to talk about railroads. So, um, there was for example, there was a television show that aired called Hell on Wheels, and it very much, yeah, it very much encapsulated the idea of creating a train. It was literally a story about a character and a bunch of other side characters in the development of a train. For example, there was a guy that was, I believe, produced steel, the iron and steel for the tie rods and the rail lines. And there was a surveyor, and he had this map, and he made this straight line across the United States. And the guy smacked him in the head. He was like, "Why would you do that?" And the surveyor is like, "Well, don't we want to go from connect the rail lines from one end of the United States to the other?" He's like, "Yes, but not in a straight line. The government's paying for the steel. You make that shit like a snake. Like we want to produce as much steel and get paid as much steel as possible." And it was a pretty ridiculous idea, but listen, if you're all about that money, that it makes a lot of sense. So you have individuals that really want to make a straight line from one place to another. You have those who they could really care less how long it takes or how circuitous the rail lines are. Also, we there were surveyors to have to travel along this path, which would be great fun for player characters to do. For example, yeah, yeah, exactly, Shice. Yeah. Says, "Oh man, want to talk about government waste?" Exactly, right? It's like, You mean this could have been a straight line, and we're taking like, I don't know, we're adding like 300% to the travel time, but there's also some practical elements to the surveying. For example, in science fiction, you could have stargates, right? And you have a high technology, extremely high technology society, but maybe the adventurers have to physically travel as far as they can go before the Stargate is created to allow instant travel. Same thing, similar idea for railroads. Player characters must travel by foot mounts, whatever, travel along a path with the surveyors to arrive in certain locations, map them out, get them surveyed. Of course, danger is involved in the whole enterprise before the rail can even be built to travel there 5 times as fast as they could walking or mounted, right? Um, Also, we also have there's the story of um, John Henry of the let's see if I can get the John. It says it's yeah, it's Henry. I should have pulled this up. Um, and the idea of the the individual where we used human labor to dig tunnels and to human labor. It embodies a number of things, but one of the main things is about using human labor and industrialization. Railroads are a very visible part of the industrialization of a society or something. And the story of John Henry is about a human being who is tasked with beating a machine to dig a tunnel through a mountain. And so, digging tunnels through mountains and building bridges and things for that rail line to run along, if there is actual physical metal rails that railroad will be rolling along, is a story unto itself. And so, the idea of the folklorish tale of John Henry is a uh, it, literally the player characters could um, inadvertently or maybe on purpose take the role of John Henry, or this could be an NPC or a hero or even a deific type of character or an avatar of some sort, and could very much embody like what's something very Dungeons and Dragons like, barbarian, or something maybe warlock, or artificer, meaning like someone who embodies the physical representation of this power, and that industrialization is going to supplant this individual or individuals like a faction or something of that nature. Yeah, John Henry is an American folk hero, an African American freedman. He is said to have worked as a steel driving man, a man tasked with hammering a steel drill into rock to make holes for explosives to blast the rock in constructing a railroad tunnel. And listen, even with animation and things of that nature, they've shown this individual physically like by themselves digging tunnels and things like that as a story. And also, um, the storyline has been co-opted as a heroic measure of the power of humanity over machine and whatnot. And it could be very many people who are saboteurs. They don't want the rail line to be created for any number of reasons. It could be caravanners maybe make a lot of money, and you make a rail line, puts the caravanners out of work. You have people who live between A and B, and those everyone that lives between A and B, just like our society, people love things except when it's put in their backyard. There's always the NIMBYs, not in my backyard isms, and so everyone's like, "Yay, railroad! Boo, railroad!" Right? Mm-mm-mm. TA says that is why the government set a location and pitted two companies against each other to get it first, thus getting a contract. So they would hopefully be more efficient about it too. Yes, competition can wipe out the waste if you do it correctly, right? Unless both competitors get together. I'm looking at you, uh, uh, ink people that make ink for printers, bastards. Yeah, want to talk about shitty trains because we all hold the cards in that game. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shice is like, you never seen Amtrak, have you? Yeah, Amtrak isn't. That's government supported here, and it's not the best. I think there's two train lines. One's in Canada. I know there's one. Rocky Mountaineer is like a luxury liner type of train that goes pretty far, and then there's a Trans Canadian one as well that I hear is I've that I've seen YouTube wise, travel loggers and stuff, and they say it's really excellent. TA says John Henry, I always saw as the railroad version of the lumberjack Paul Bunyan. Yes, yes, yes. Very. There is a. There's not a lot for Americanism folklore. So let's do this again. Let's put this up here because Paul Bunyan is another folkloric character. Let's see, Bunyan. There we go. Paul Bunyan. Bunyan, and it's been turned into cartoons and such. Let's see if we get some. Let's get some images. Throw up some images here. Um, a lot of cartoon things. But yeah, Paul Bunyan has been described as like a mountain man, a giant man with a blue ox as his best friend, and has been part of is another character in American folklore. Just like there's a number of characters that off the top of my head I can't think of. Um, Not Paul Revere. Ooh, uh, Daniel Crockett, something like that. Yeah, and a lot of this has been made into cartoons and things of that nature. That's a good image. There we go. Yeah, it was like there's like a story where Paul Bunyan straightened out a river. It was like a snake like river, and he pulled the river straight or something, and that's why the river flows the way it did, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of that. So maybe we'll go down some of those pathways. I wasn't even thinking about going down this pathway, but yeah. John Henry was my favorite story when I was a kid, even better than Paul Bunyan because he breaks on through to the other side. Yes. And if I'm not mistaken, dies? I can't remember. Yeah, One Eye Heathen says Johnny Cash made a song about John Henry. He had to stop fooling on just to had to stop fooling on just to say that. No, you're cool too. And yes, you are right. Yeah, I forgot Johnny Cash made a song. I didn't know the artist, but I remember there being a song about John Henry. Yeah, too bad he dies of exhaustion at the end, but that's part of the mystique. I had a great kids book with a great picture of his break on through death scene. I remember seeing an animated version of that very scene, and it was done like silhouette style, where he breaks through to the other side to dig the tunnel and beats the machine and then dies. TA says one reason would be to force it to divert to a town that they have bought cheap land on, so the land explodes in value, so they can resell for massive profit. Exactly. That's how highways end up having that done as well, right? Roadways and things. Someone buys cheap land and then gets the railroad diverted to their place so that everyone goes there, and then it becomes uh, it becomes a locus, just due to societal gravity. Yeah, yeah. Caligula says, "Is I believe you're saying, is there a modern day John Henry? I don't know. Modern. Oh, it, uh, it depends on how you think of like. It's hard to think of history when you're in it. So I don't know. Today, alive, a person that could kind of represent a real life John Henry. I don't know. TA says, yeah, that man versus machine that won, but at some tragic cost to them is another unifying aspect of Paul Bunyan and John Henry. And I want to say that that yes, we can go down the problematic trip of the settling of the United States. There's a lot of problematic things in history in general, right? But much of it, I'm sure the same could be said for like Australia and some of these other countries. Um, uh, uh, there's very much a blue collar, dirty fingered, um, um, bootstrapping, seat of the pants style. I'm using all these analogies and metaphors and similes and stuff. There is this idea of the common man that given just their willpower can overcome many challenges. And many the underlying aspect of a lot of settling and our talk about world building when it comes to history of the United States is that not a lot of it deals with traditional nobility, being born of a certain race or creed or blue blood of a certain family line. A lot of it was a common dude or lady or person that just happened to rise up and stand up and do a thing to achieve a goal. And unfortunately, a lot of that has to deal with sacrifice. Many of these people die at the end. And in a little bit of a way, it's very much related to samurai style culture where it's not about it be the goal unto itself becomes the aspect, and everything else falls away. The John Henry story is an example of everything falling away. Could this person give up and go about their life? Sure. But the story is no, they're gonna do their try their hardest and try to defeat something that can't be defeated. And they do it, and then they die at the end. And it was a story to fan the flames of those who wanted to settle land to become homesteaders and create ranches and move across the United States. And everyone's going like, we've never traveled this far before, going to unknown places that's very dangerous. Can we do it? Yeah, here's a story about a person who did a thing and even sack up to the point at which they would give up their life. And so a lot of that part of the stories we hear is underlying in terms of like gold rush and oil and coal and things like that. So yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Taste of Banana says the guys who built the sarcophagus around Chernobyl, they might be the modern day John Henry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Slow clap on that one. The television show Chernobyl, I think it's a 4-part series, 4 6 I cannot remember, but yeah, the coal miners from Russia, man, that had to dig there naked, digging underground to try to save their country and basically the world from a nuclear holocaust. Yes, I would absolutely say that. I would also add in the Japanese scientists that walked around in the radioactive water after the nuclear meltdown there in Japan. I would say that as well. TA says those two individuals I would love to see woven into the story line for TV series American Gods. Ooh, yeah, kind of deific characters that become like deified and stuff. Uh-oh, John Henry versus Paul Bunyan. Yeah, Paul Bunyan never had the mystique of John Henry. Yeah, he was just some giant Superman, but John Henry was a mere mortal. I agree with that. Yep, yep, yep. Shai says, yes, the silhouette of a red sky as the sun sets when he breaks on through. Never seen the animation though. Gotta look that one up. Yes, it's very much like that. I just can't remember where. I know I'm pretty sure I could Google search away, but I like the mystique of not knowing. His TA says, I would guess there is possibly some amazing artists that could compete against AI, and they're pushing themselves to beat it. Also leads to exhaustion, death, and suffering, the mental illness for the tragic ending part. Yeah, yeah. Uh, wow. It would be pretty interesting for someone to do that. To like to record their themselves beating the AI in terms of the art market and things like that. Thank you. Dead Man says, for villains, you can use the inspiration for this topic. The railroad barons of the 19th century. Ow. J.P. Morgan, J.J. Hill. Never heard of J.J. Hill. William Rockefeller, George Gould, E.H. Harriman, and W.K. Vanderbilt. Yes, there's by the way, there is a um, History Channel show called The Men Who Built America, which I'm slightly pulling from. And a lot of them, like Dead Man is saying, there were some, listen, there were no rules. And they felt like, if there's no rules, that means we can do all the dirty shit we want to. I'm looking at you, Pinkertons. Yeah, which is another thing that came about through the settling of the United States and factory work and things like that. Yeah, they were pretty horrible. As a matter of fact, I believe one of them, one of the individuals you related down here, Dead Man, is an individual who um, got into building uh, bridges, and I believe built bridges into New York City, and then shut the bridges down so rail lines could not get into New York City, and basically did extorted money out of the railroad barons by owning the bridges that the rail lines crossed over, until of course they were like, we can't let this happen again. Yeah. TA says, "Oh, another analogy to the Chernobyl people would be though those elderly that sacrificed what little life they saw they had to avoid young people cleaning up Fukushima." Ooh, yeah, yeah, yep, yeah. Good call. Artist beating AI. Yeah, yeah. There is that hell on wheels. Also, the Pinkertons don't they now work for Magic Gatherings Pacific Coast? They were hired. The Pinkertons. Uh, are an organization. They are a private security organization. Wizards of the Coast hired them because someone knew somebody that worked for them, and didn't realize like maybe you shouldn't do that because they can be pretty ruthless because they're known to succeed where other people fail. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, they're like a domestic version of what's the military contractor, like Black Forest or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's kind of like that. Oh, crazy, crazy, crazy. Could have swore there was some story of them showing up to scare that fan that accidentally received some cards. Yes, yes, that's a real thing. So someone accidentally received cards that should not have been sent to them, and they were sent prematurely. So different companies have rollouts. Hey, we're releasing a product at a particular time, particular date, because it can affect the value and marketing and things like that. So this individual who's a huge fan and had a YouTube, or not had, I think they still have a YouTube channel that featured Magic the Gathering. They ordered a bunch of cards. They received the wrong set, the not to be released set, and the Pinkertons went to their house to collect those cards, and very thinly veiled threatened them with arrest, lawsuits, and probably a little bit of physical violence to get those cards back. Which, I was just like, that was the choice you made, instead of, I don't know, knocking on their door and going, oh, by the way, here's the real cards you have, and we would like you to take down your video, and or something like that, or just give them, just, I don't know, invite them to the factory or whatever, or what, you know what I mean? Say, hey, sorry, we made a mistake. We'd like to make it up to you, but no, they didn't make that choice. Yeah, who else beats the machine nowadays? I don't know. I don't know. Dead Man says James Jerome Hill was a Canadian American railroad director. He was the chief executive officer of a family of lines headed by the Great Northern Railroad. I grew up in Philadelphia, and it was like the Reading Railroad. So I bet Reading was another name that was really huge, because I just remember Reading. It looks like reading, but there it was pronounced Reading. And there's a town in Philadelphia known as Reading, which was probably I'm going to guess was a either founded by that family name or became a railroad stop along the way. Yep. I, TA says, I think the one great machine to beat is that of the corruption in government. Oh no, that machine will grind you grind you to a pulp. Yeah, the Pinkertons are managed by a man who is a relative of a WotC exec. Yep, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that's probably why they made the phone call. But that one doesn't need to. You can make a phone call to a family friend. You don't need to hire them. Yeah, crazy, 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 crazy. All right, so um, we got to come up with some story elements here. Like, why the hell would we even have railroads in the first place? And of course, like any caravanners or something, people need to get from A to B, and they need to take their stuff from A to B. There could be a great resource, that gold and oil we talked about before, coal or whatever, and we need to get that resource from A to B, B to A, and back and forth. So of course, trade routes. We fantasy games. We love to have ourselves trade routes and protecting them, and they're being besieged by weather or banditry and things of that nature. So that is a thing. Now, of course, money and industry needs to be created in order to make a railroad. So are there, in our fantasy, are there going to be physical rails? Are these rails going to be, are we going to do the Eberron? Let me see if we can find some Eberron rails. Eberron lightning rail. Let's see if we can find some imagery here. Images. And let's see if we, for fantasy, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe they are fueled. There it is. There's one. There's a picture of Whirl Anvil and the lightning rail. So this doesn't necessarily have a rail in the classic sense, but there are these like crystalline things underneath it, and the electricity arcs up into the engine of the rail line, and it's dragged along like kind of floats. And I even heard of. Let me see. There's another image here where it's being attacked by. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're like flying people, and flying around it. I like the art. I like this a little bit better. Um, anyway, um, there's also the idea of the like elemental trains. So you could have trains fueled by elements like air, and it's like carried along pockets of air floating along the ground. It could be fueled by fire, and we can do like our classic steam engines. There's even the idea of earth elementals, so that what I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. So imagine um, an earth. Imagine the earth itself, like stone or rock or gemstone or granite or whatever, that has openings on the inside, so you can go inside of it, and it can flow along the ground, even going through mountains and things of that nature, but the people inside are never impacted by what's on the outside. So, a long stone like a trail of bricks or something could be floating, or literally sliding across the ground like it's liquid, but trees and things would flow over top of it, or it would head towards a mountainside, and it would just flow right into the mountain. And those inside of the elemental train would never see the mountainside. It would just turn dark. Maybe there would be some kind of like artificial lighting or something like that. So that's also a possibility as well. You can come up with so many other things, like maybe there are, I don't know, the player characters themselves or some other faction must put down these crystalline things on ley lines that allow the rail to even flow along the ley lines or whatever. And then that way you could make an excuse as to why there isn't a direct line between A and B, or it may have to be circuitous. I like that word, circuitous, to go around a population that doesn't want the rail line to go through their property. And of course, anyone who's um, gnomes make things go places. You're so right. Um, but yeah, maybe there's even the heist idea is the idea that important dignitaries or valuable commodities or um, heck, criminals, arrested criminals or something. Uh, Captured animals, mystical animals like a zoo could be on these trains, and someone finds out that, due to the paperwork or whatever, that something valuable is there, and maybe the players have to um, go after the train. And when they find out when and where this train is going to be, so they could rob the train, or maybe they're protecting the train from robbers who find out about this information. The information got out, and they're like, "Damn it, someone stole the missives!" But we can't wait because the I don't know, the winter season's closing in, and this is the last train to go through the deep valley or something like that. Yeah, you want me to derail this whole thing with an anti-government tirade? Yeah, there's a machine you cannot stop. Yeah, as long as Steam still works, even in a fantasy world full of magic, then Steam engines would still be a thing possible. As a matter of fact, let me look this up. The real McCoy. Um, the For those who don't know, there's something known as the real McCoy, and yeah, yeah. If you describe someone or something as the real McCoy, you mean that they really are what they claim to be and are not an imitation. And it comes from, let's see if we can find this. Um, am I still sharing this out? Yeah. So Elijah McCoy from 1844 to 1929 was a black Canadian inventor of a lubrication system for steam engines. Supposedly, after failed attempts by competitors to make counterfeits of his lubricant, the phrase real McCoy was used to refer to his authentic product. And so, steam engines and rail system, many times they were covered, they were we see lots of steam and ash being um, pumped out of these steam engines, but there were also many people that had to lubricate them constantly because of the mechanical systems running constantly very hot and such. And so oiling systems needed to be done. If they weren't, human beings had to physically lubricate the wheels and the engine parts and things like that over and over and over again. And so this person the Elijah McCoy was someone who created it. So, yep, little bit of history there. Mm-mm-mm. Shai says, "Is Eberron the one where they fucked up everything with modern tech and D and robots and all that shit?" A little bit, yeah, lots of bit maybe, but yes. Uh, on steam engines in a fantasy world, I would just say that you could have magical means for generating the heat for making steam instead of just wood or coal. Like imagine a couple of baby young dragons being the source of the heat. That would be awesome. Tickle the stomach, breathe the fire. That would be, but that seems very dwarvenish. I think would be awesome as well. Mm-mm-mm. Shai says, yeah, gnomish technology was one of the biggest turnoffs. Wow. In the otherwise interesting Mystara setting. Wow. There's a hot take. Says, or you could take inspiration from Full Metal Alchemist. They have 4 rail lines from the capital covering the 4 directions. Ooh, I'm gonna look that up. Heavens help us is a D&D train. Yes, it is. Japanese are converting all their already. Yeah, 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 yep, yep. Japanese have done that, yeah. What does circuitous even mean? Like a circle? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, or going around, I believe. I'm I don't know. I like finding strange words that I don't get to use very often. Sorry about that. Mm-mm-mm. Thank you there, dead man. Thank yes, circuitous, longer than the most direct way. Yeah, you got any railroads in the Obsidian Star? Maybe. I hadn't thought about. Well, no, 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 no. There's plenty of railroads on Mars, and I know there's one on. There's at least one on Mercury, but I haven't decided what it was going to be like. So, okay, here's another thing that is possible and would be rather strange, and that would be um, there's been there's the idea of rolling giant stones, i.e., building Egyptian pyramids, where you take a big, multi-tonish giant block of stone, and then you use logs, and you have rolling logs underneath it, and the very last log you drag to the front of it and rolls under. So it's also possible for us to have a train that rolls by taking the tracks it's already rolled over and putting those tracks in front of it, so that it's that by the time you get to your end destination, there are no railroad tracks behind it. So there could be something of that nature where the player characters are part of, or there's a need to build the structure as you're rolling along, which also could be pretty interesting as well. That you have to build a bridge to get across this chasm, even though after you get across the chasm, the I don't know, the materials or magic or what have you has to then be picked up and moved along with you, packed onto the train to then use it to construct yet another bridge in front of you, which would be pretty interesting as well. Mm-mm-mm. I'm with you there, Anderson. So also, I believe it also means finding a backdoor way of sneakily way of doing something without being seen or doing it. Yep, 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 yep. Oh man. All right. Oh man, no, 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 no. I'm not. This isn't an anti-government podcast. This is a fantasy one, so yeah, because we can go down a deep hole about that. So, but what we also need some other things for what our player characters are going to do. So, if our player characters are agents of industry that this rail line exists, that they are protecting it. They very well could be individuals that are trying to ensure that the rail line goes from A to B. They may be envoys or diplomats of some sort, a forward advance group to uh, beseech the people that you're moving through their land and ask them slash threaten them slash hey encourage them to allow this rail line to go through their property, especially if it's going to stop in this community. Uh, I guess here I go with the Druidic circle. They might not want their forest cut down or a pathway cut through their forest to make way for a rail line, which would be pretty interesting. Okay, so also player characters may be tasked with again protecting the train along its way from saboteurs, from bandits, from train robbers, from those who want to stop this thing. There may be competing elements like the Vanderbilts versus the Rockefellers and whatnot, and whose rail line, even though they're all going to the same place, which rail line is better than the other one? Is one more luxury versus another where there's just people crammed in, packed in and dangling on the side to get from A to B to leave to go on this wild ride to try to achieve a better life? Very much could be there. Also, what fuels the train itself? Is it wood and coal, and that needs to be scooped into the engine to create the fire, like you guys were saying before? Does it need to be? Do you have to find coal or wood or whatever magical thing along the way? Is that fire breathing dragon Does that fire breathing dragon just get upset and leave? And everyone's like, oh no. Like, well, the dragon's got to eat. We don't ask about how that how that works. Um, the rich and powerful could be very influential in hiring some of the big bad evil, the BBEGs, to that are protecting and funding the rail line. And I mean, could you imagine a rail line like I don't know, a rail line led by a like a wraith or a lich or something like that, that's picking up souls along the way? Or if you can't pay your ticket, well, if you don't pay now, you can pay later with your eternal life or something like that. You could make it kind of evil. There's also uh, a role playing game called Deadlands, and Deadlands very much encapsulated like the dark horror the the uncharted lands of the United States in a um, 6 shooter gun, uh, um, OK Corral type of Western aesthetic plus Lovecraftian horror attached to it. So yeah, there's a little bit of that, and heck, there's even not Werewolf the Apocalypse, but there's a White Wolf version of Werewolf that takes place during that period of time as well. So yeah. Okay, here we go. Back into our co-hosts here. Um, you guys definitely derailed. Well, you know, the fact that rail lines can be derailed in the first place is pretty horrible. The very last action scene of the latest Mission Impossible movie, Dead Reckoning, had a pretty intense rail car scene, and trying not to die from having a steam engined train go off the tracks and things like that. There's even one. It's not a steam engine, but there's even a rail line. I'm mixed. Okay, I'm going to start mixing my multimedia here. Um, Wanted. There's a gunfight, bending bullets, making bullets bend through the air. There's a gunfight on a train that derails, and there's also Snowpiercer is another one of a rail line where the entire adventure takes place on a massive rail line, and it would be pretty interesting to have like a dungeon that is a steam engined train. Doesn't have to be steam engine, but I like steam engines. And so you could have an entire dungeon, multi-level dungeon. Maybe it's got two, three, four, five levels, and it's only so wide. And if the player character, of course, there's the danger of going outside the train, especially if you have a fantasy realm where it's extremely dangerous on the outside. Planescape, I'm looking at you, where you could be going through the different planes of existence, or your own fantasy realm has like volcanic areas and acid rain and corrosive steam or mist and geysers and um, shadow monsters and monsters. If you open up your eyes, you see your very fears or something like that. Like you could have a very arcane like, and that could be very dangerous as well, where the train moves from one place to another. A train. Yep, Snowpiercer, an allegory to the communist revolution. Yeah, Snowpiercer, pretty um on the nose and yet still horrible, right? The have-nots, the ones at the lowest level, sit in the back caboose eating that nasty black licorice that we all know is made up from the processed flesh of those that live on the train, because they ran out of goods and services and things of that nature. Yeah, Snowpiercer. Oof. Ugh. TA says, I think the real world stuff going on makes for good info to enrich a fantasy world. Yeah, and make it more plausible and give more reasons that can be used to instigate adventures too. I agree with you there. No, seriously, I really do. And damn, you guys, woo. Um, I do love the idea of taking real world things. That's what I'm trying to do. We listen here. Those of us in the states we love to add a bit of mysticism to other cultures from around the world, because we're the melting pot, right? United States is there's only one one peoples that lived here before everybody else got here, right? And so here in the states, we like to add a bit of historical mysticism to other cultures from around the world, but we really don't often use that mirror back on ourselves. And so I thought it would be kind of a cool idea, and maybe even kind of discuss and find out like what motivates people stateside to beat us for good or bad, especially bad. But Drew says some video games have pretty much dungeons that are train rides. World of Warcraft and Star Wars: The Old Republic both have those. Yeah, I mean, how awesome would it be to just have a moving uh, dungeon, and each car of the dungeon could be like a 3-level dungeon unto itself to find the key to open up the door to get to the next car. Um, I don't know. I mean, listen, there have been dungeons that have been living creatures, right? You go into the mouth of the monster or the anus of the monster, whatever, and the interior of the monster is a dungeon unto itself. But turning it into something mechanical or biomechanical, and it's traveling from one place to another, and you could also add a time measurement to that as well. Hey, adventurers, to get through this dungeon, you've got to get from one place, from car number 7 to car number 3 by a certain time before it reaches its station or arrives at the end of its journey, or it's traveling through a dangerous region, which then changes the nature of the dungeon. So if it travels through the pyromantic plains of Pagarthus or something, I'd had to pull that out of my ass. And so maybe now when they go into the next car, it has many fiery features because it's traveling through the fiery plains of this pyroclasms or something. But then when it goes into the opposite, the frozen reaches of Tharsis or something, now that car, the 5 levels of that dungeon have all like frozen style features or something. And the NPCs could be trying to just keep the damn thing together, or get in the way of the player characters or something. I don't know. I thought that was more like telling what the was going to push forward into. Hmm. Talking about Snowpiercer. Yes, yes, yes. Mm-mm. Let's see. Is adding railroads to the game a way of being overt about railroading the characters to each step of a story you have written for the game as a dungeon master? There's a little bit of the railroading of the the railroads railroading your player characters. But let's be honest. The old classic dungeon is a railroad. Okay, because if you walk down a hallway, you only have a few options. You're either at the starting point of A, and the only last direction is the level of B. Now you might find a side part like a secret door or a pit trap or a concealed door behind it, but a dungeon is a railroad, a limited choice sandbox. Let's put it that way. So there's a little bit of the railroading with the railroad. Yeah. Says, oh man, now I want to see a fantasy dungeon style like the movie Cube. Ooh, yeah. All right, Heathen. Hey, have a great one. Have a great evening. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, a living creature dungeon railroad that will get us back on track. Right on track. Not gonna get you back. Yeah, good call. The cube would be an awesome one shot, but it might require more real life problem solving skills than a bunch of gamers could muster. Ouch. Ouch, Calig. Ouch. Hot take on that one. Yeah, you guys aren't smart enough. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Side note for those who don't know. Sorry, I didn't get your comment there. For those who don't know, in Sinopa Publishing, um, uh, please, if you can, look, I gotta put in a link here. There we go. Do, 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 do. I'm gonna find a link. Do, 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 do. There we go. Copy. Copy and paste. Here is a link to Snopa Publishing. Bam! Over at Drive Through RPG. Please check them out. Um, Very prolific. What's the fuck my live? My brain is shutting down. Um, Here we go. What is the current story of 47 Furious Tales? There it is. That's it. Yep, yep. Furious 47 Furious Tales. Um, a um, a furry version of the 47 Ronin, which is kind of cool. I was just watching, trying to digest a little bit more of Blue Eye Samurai. Pleased to meet you. Hey, easy. Drew says, now I remember vaguely a video here on YouTube where someone talked about why trains are pretty much in every superhero film. Well, listen, trains are um, uh, thematically, trains are a great object to have in any kind of storytelling. Okay, so first of all, trains get our protagonists and our antagonists from distant locations very quickly, but not quick enough to go past our plot. So on a train, you have a you have limited location, so you can have a number of NPCs and agents, characters, whatever, and have them all interacting in different methods. You also have a limited number but different types of regions of your train. So you have a dining car, you might have a smoking car, you have a caboose, you have the sleeping areas, you have the main engine, and you have these different regions on your train in which you can have different interactions. Maybe there is music and there's dancing. Maybe you have a smoking lounge and they're just drinking cognac or something like that. You have the sleeper cars as well. You also have baggage and luggage and cargo, and you have that area. Now, also the train moves through different environments. So you have the external part of the train and that environment. It's dangerous to fall off the train. You have dynamism in terms of running, riding, driving, flying something to get onto the train because it's moving fast or slow. There's the idea of like uh, uh, um, escaping the train. Do you jump off of it? Do you tumble and fall? Do you throw someone off of it and they slam into a wall? The train goes through tunnels, and there's the danger of that. There is Train to Busan is a zombie movie with a train, and there's zombies on a train. Very dynamic as well. Also, with the limited space, there's a claustrophobia with it, so there's a little bit of a horror intent. The smaller and more confined the space, the more horror you can instill because you have very few places you can run to and hide. And trains also give us the listen, you guys know I consider myself to be the self-appointed third pillarist of the tabletop RPG community. So I love the third pillar of exploration. And part of exploration to me is basically stunt work. It's all the amazing things. So sure, we can get bored punching goblins in the throat, but throw those goblins onto a train and you got yourself some fun. Whether you're having sword fights on top of a train, you're dangling off the side of a train, you're being dragged behind a train, you're pushing your adversaries, in between the train cars and things like that. So there's lots of stuff that trains really like if you start to embrace, and this goes for lots of other things too, right? But if you start to embrace the trains themselves, you go, oh, that's why. Oh, that's another thing that's great. Yeah. Yeah. He says, whatever, I subscribed at least. You're all right. Okay, so we need some more things because as we get to the end here, we need some more things for our player characters to do. And one of the things that our player characters could be doing is we have we have very many stories we can pull from that happen on trains. We talked a little bit about Snowpiercer, about the player characters being at the back end of the train and having to struggle against classism and things like that to get to the front of the train. But we have plenty of murder mysteries and heists done on trains, needing to find an unnamed individual who has particular information, maybe going to the cargo area to find a MacGuffin, an object that is needed to achieve something, or a map, or connect with someone who doesn't. Um, and then a monkey wrench is thrown into making connection on the train. And of course, as the train comes to different stops, NPCs can leave and flow and come back into the train, thereby changing the dynamic. For example, in a fantasy realm, the train could stop somewhere, and then all of a sudden, a vampire lord and their thralls gets on the train, and the PCs are like, "Oh, damn it! They're just gonna they're gonna gum up the works in what we're trying to do here." And so you could very much have something like that. Also, like I played in a game through with Erasmus over on Absolute Tabletop. But anyway, in our adventure, there was a portal to another realm, and a rail line was set up to get to the portal itself. So what they really wanted to do is build the rail line into the portal to go to this other realm. But we, as the player characters, were on the train with a bunch of other people that we knew we were going to have to interact with to get to the end of the line, and then travel through this portal to this other place. So it was complicated by a number of adversaries we had to deal with on the train. Then when we got to the end of the line, a number of adversaries we had to deal with there, and then go through the portal to the other world, and we had to deal with them there. And then alliances kept changing and moving and things like that. So yeah. TA says one thing about the train goblins could be to make them essential to survival till the train ride ends. So just killing them off could cause everyone um, the train to die or something, forcing the players to come up with a more imaginative solution. Yep. Hey, if those gobbies need to take care of the train, and you're murder killing them, people were like, "What the hell are you doing?" Yeah, I am not trained to use trains in my game. Yeah. What's the come on, Ticket to Ride? Is that the board game, the train board game? Uh so funny. Yeah. I know, talking about meat. Yeah, I saw a typo of something, say the Crypt Keeper would say to someone being a flesh-eating ghoul. Yeah, the Crypt Keeper. Uh Taste of Banat says, how about a train that stops at every inhabited building on the way? So your railroad adventure campaign takes forever. Like waiting for Godot. Yeah, it's just okay, everybody all aboard. We've arrived at our next stop. It literally took that long, and everyone's like, what the hell? Um, Also, like highways and rail lines and airplanes, the railroad could be taking the player characters, dare I say, past the adventure. And um, the adventure may not be on the rail line itself, but the players could be arriving in the air quotes safe locations, the classic fantasy towns, but off the beaten path, or where all the danger is at. So the train could be the equivalent of a starship, a sailing craft, a castle, a fort, a mission, a church. The rail line itself could be a player character safe haven, but every place else isn't safe, and so it could be adventure, adventure, adventure. Ooh, we got to get back to the rail stop, and the rail comes in 3 days. We got to survive in the wilderness until 3 days comes, and then get on a train, safety, and then becomes a safe location. TA says, I kind of like the idea if you were to use the train for getting around the world and then create that whole murder mystery setting for the adventure while they are on the train or something. Oh, yeah, absolutely. One movie that makes me think of is Horror Express. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Hell, we did weeks on Planescape. Getting on that train to go to another dimension, other planes of existence, actually makes a lot of sense as well. As populations grow in our fantasy realms, maybe the boatman is kind of like, I can't fit everybody in here. I need a train. you know, and that train doesn't need to be on physical ground. It could go underwater or in the air or something like that, you know. So go to spiritual places. Train goblins are real. they're called they're called football fans. Yeah. Oh yeah, all painted faced and stuff like that. Shai says, has anybody ever had a major disaster on a train, like fall asleep and miss your destination? I've done that. When I was a kid, I it panicked me to no end. I yeah, I got on a train. No, I got on a train, fell asleep, didn't realize I was on the wrong train, and it panicked the hell out of me. And then I had to figure it out, but I was maybe shit 12 or something like that. Panicked the hell out of me. Yes, Caligulus says, I saw an American guy get off for a smoke and the train left without him on the way from Frankfurt to Prague. His mom was pissed. Yeah, there's a little bit of that too. You know, trains stop somewhere, players get pulled into an adventure. You guys know one of the best skills at all ever is to have as a game master, dungeon master, storyteller, flame tender is time. Any kind of time pressure you can put on player characters to break that analysis paralysis and let them know, listen, train's going to stop for 3 hours, right? Till the sun goes down, till dusk. And the player characters get pulled into adventure. They go off and find a crypt. They get pulled into some locals that have an issue, and the PCs are like, "Do we stay or do we get back on the train?" Well, the train's not going to come for another 3 weeks, and we don't have enough supplies. And then you put it in their hands, right? Great idea. Also, um, a train can be a shorthand for I really don't have a map of my world yet. So the train can go from I don't know, urban city to accursed desert to dank swamp. And yes, the PCs see things happening out the windows, but it doesn't really matter. You travel at the speed of plot and you get to these places. And then later you fill in a blank. Oh, you traveled 12 leagues. You traveled 3 weeks. Like you could fill in a blank. So maybe a railroad is also a way for you to do a point crawl or point sandbox point crawl adventuring. So you're just traveling from one hex to another distant hex, but we really don't know how many hexes are in between. It's just a generalized number. So railroads. Uh, let's see railroads. Railroads in Ohio. Let's just pull it and let's get some images up here. Mm-mm-mm. But yeah. Let's see anything. Look what our co-hosts have to say. That is part of why I work to make my combat system as close to real time reaction as possible. Which oh shit, it moved on me. Um, which unfortunately could cause asthma attacks by the time the fight was over. That's pretty funny. He's so funny. Like, oh, you were 12? Yeah. I was riding. Yeah, in Philly, you have to ride public transportation all the time. So there's like subway surface cars and regional rail lines and the elevated trains and the subway and things like that. So I got used to it. When you're a kid, you just do that. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. TA is going to have to show that on his channel at some point. But yeah, just showing some rail cars and railroads and things like that. Now, um, taking care of steam engines is pretty difficult. Very few people know how to operate them, and a lot of these the rail lines themselves don't exist much anymore, and it takes a lot of upkeep because there has to be enough excuse me upkeep and money to fund rail lines, and we do use rail here to um, send goods and services, but we don't. Amtrak does take passengers from A to B, but with automobiles and things of that nature, um, people travel past the places. So rail lines and busing and things like that. You know, and then of course there's the Underground Railroad. That is of course different. It's Ohio was is known for its Underground Railroad, and if we wanted to make an analogy of the freeing of slaves with the Underground Railroad, there may be an actual, real Underground Railroad, possibly even used as a rail system to get for the player characters are taking people escaping from the Illithids and the Mind Flayers and the liches and the vampire lords and the dragons or something from A to B. Yeah, yeah. Now we're talking freedom, exactly. And I'm not making fun of the actual Underground Railroad system, but hey, listen, if we're going to use history, we can either pull some from some problematic parts of our history, and this very well may be part of that too. And non-racial. Although, well, no, maybe the dwarves have been enslaved, and the PCs have to go down into the dungeon, and they end up finding where the Underground Railroad is at, and then they're freeing the dwarves to get them from the Mind Flayers or something. I don't know what. Come on, Drow. What are some other enslaving adversaries out there in fantasy? Or we could make up some, right? Let's give those damn Ankhegs some intelligence and make them an insectoid slavers or whatever. This is honestly, it was a hodgepodge of game system mechanics I cobbled together by just hearing about other game systems and having my own issues with the one I had taught with D&D that I wanted to correct. Yep. That listen, we're all hackers, right? Yep. Underground Railroad. Now we're talking freedom. Mm-mm-mm. Good. The Underground Railroad is a legit tie into some anti-government shit. Yeah, shit lords. Yeah. Yeah, lords. Yeah. Yeah, mind flayer slavers. Yeah, didn't don't is yeah, in fantasy. Mind flayers always had were always slavers. Just like the Drow and oh Surf Neblin, maybe. I can't remember if they are. But it doesn't matter. If we say they are, then they are. That, and we used action movements and making sound effects to send a clear message to their player entity had what was going on. Okay. So anyway, we've come to the end here. I'm taking a lot of your time, and your time is valuable. You know, you guys know where it comes from. But um, rail systems and high technology. Oh, the Neogi, yes, were slaver spider creatures. Yep. The Neogi. Um, the Yuan-Ti, I believe, were known to be that way, if I'm not mistaken. Drew's like, I graduated from hacker to designer, at least in my mind, not published yet. And listen, the only difference between being published and not is hitting an enter key and giving it to everybody else, right? So not really. It's just if you have a digital thing, you give it to somebody else, you're basically a publisher. So yeah, just let the slavers be humans, too much like real life. Yeah, you ever notice in fantasy, all the monsters are slavers. We never have the humans like enslaving all of the other monstrous races in the world. The ogres and goblins and insectoid creatures are like, damn the humans, they're enslaving us. Down with the humans. But that is very true. That is very true. Come on, these taking up too much of your time outros are getting tiresome. You could go another hour. All right, all right. Hey, don't threaten me because I will. Don't test me. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Also, we're going to get back into the black gold. We'll get back into that as well. What are some other things that are supposed to be coming up that I talked about? Oh, the Civil War, and we'll do two more. We'll do at least for this week. We'll do the Civil War because I made the thumbnail already, and Day of the Ranch. We'll be ranchers and literally delve into being like a homesteader, a rancher, the not just a farmer, but doing all that kind of stuff, and using United States, that kind of things as well. Yeah, more oil will be fun too. Yeah, we'll do that. You might as well. Hell, it's still morning in Berlin. Yeah, we'll. We're not doing that. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I'll take you on the outro. Guys, have a great one. I will see thee later. Thank you very much. Your time is valuable. Thank you for spending it here. I hope in return we can make some change in your tabletop role playing game experiences. See ya. Peace and out.